For nearly 2 years, Gaza stood at the center of one of the most devastating conflicts of the 21st century. Today that chapter closes, not with victory or surrender, but exhaustion. The Israeli Defense Forces have officially withdrawn from Gaza, and the entry of 6,000 humanitarian aid trucks marks the largest relief operation in modern Middle Eastern history. But what brought this shift? Was it compassion or collapse? The withdrawal was not a spontaneous act of peace. It was the result of mounting internal and international pressure. After months of economic strain, protests in Tel Aviv, and diplomatic isolation, Israel faced a reality no military could fix. The cost of occupation had become unsustainable. Each day in Gaza drained millions from the state budget. Reservists refused to serve, and political factions inside Israel split over how to continue the war. 6,000 trucks entering Gaza may seem like an act of goodwill, and in part it is. But in global economics, aid is also strategy. Every truck represents not only food and medicine, but leverage. Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and the UN are now active stakeholders in Gaza's reconstruction. This means a redistribution of influence. Israel steps back, others step in. And with every ton of aid delivered, new alliances are quietly being built. Gaza's destruction is immense, but so is its potential. Rebuilding will require over $45 billion, according to early UN estimates. For global investors, this is not just charity, it's a new market. Construction, energy, water systems, agriculture, all will be rebuilt from the ground up. If handled with fairness, this can transform Gaza into a regional trade hub connecting Egypt, Jordan, and the Mediterranean. If exploited, however, it will simply become another cycle of dependency. The world's response is cautious optimism. For the first time in years, both Western and Arab nations have found common ground: the need for lasting peace. China and Russia support reconstruction under UN oversight, while the US faces domestic pressure to reevaluate military aid to Israel. In Europe, citizens call for accountability, while humanitarian organizations flood the region with resources. Global consciousness is shifting from geopolitics to human survival. Inside Israel, the consequences are profound. The Netanyahu era, defined by division, austerity, and militarization, faces its reckoning. Public trust in leadership is fractured. Younger Israelis question the ethics and economics of endless war. The nation's internal politics are realigning toward pragmatism, some say even toward peace. Because when the people demand bread instead of bullets, leaders are forced to listen. This agreement, while fragile, reflects a broader truth. Military dominance cannot secure lasting stability. Real peace will depend on jobs, schools, and healthcare, not tanks and walls. For the first time in decades, both sides are confronting a shared future rather than fighting over a divided past. It is a small, uncertain step, but it is a beginning. History will remember this moment not for the trucks or even the ceasefire, but for the realization that power has limits, that the economics of destruction eventually yield to the economics of life, and that peace, when it finally comes, is never given. It is built, brick by brick, family by family, choice by choice. After months of intense conflict and diplomatic maneuvering, a major shift is unfolding across Gaza and Israel. Recent reports confirm that Israel has reduced humanitarian aid deliveries to roughly 300 trucks per day, citing delays by Hamas in returning the bodies of Israeli hostages. Despite the ongoing ceasefire, fuel and gas supplies remain heavily restricted, leaving hospitals and aid groups struggling to maintain basic operations. Meanwhile, the IMF has described the Gaza peace deal as a potential turning point, a chance to rebuild shattered economies, not only in Gaza, but also in neighboring nations like Egypt and Jordan, which have suffered economic aftershocks from the war. Egypt's growth projections have risen to nearly 4.5% for 2025 to 26, signaling cautious optimism in the region. Yet on the ground, Gaza's economy remains devastated. UNCTAD reports an 81% collapse in GDP during the last quarter of 2023, with more than $30 billion in economic losses due to destroyed infrastructure, housing, and business assets. Inside Gaza, Hamas has tightened its grip following Israel's partial military withdrawal, cracking down on rival factions and alleged collaborators. Armed clashes, especially with powerful clans like the Dogmash family, highlight internal divisions that could threaten Gaza's fragile stability. At the same time, the humanitarian crisis remains dire, with aid agencies warning of looming famine and mass displacement. The United Nations and UNICEF emphasize that even with ceasefire agreements, food scarcity and unemployment now exceeding 45% pose long-term dangers to recovery. In Israel, political fault lines are deepening. While the IDF's repositioning has been framed as part of a broader ceasefire roadmap, ultimately, this new phase marks both relief and uncertainty. As Professor Richard D. Wolff might note, the region stands at an economic and moral crossroads. Whether this ceasefire becomes the foundation of peace or the prelude to another cycle of collapse depends on how power, truth, and accountability are balanced in the days ahead.